My dad, he used to be so full of life, working his butt off to build up his company. We were having a decent life, but then, out of the blue, he suddenly lost all his enthusiasm and lost interest. Eventually, the company had to shut down for good. Tough times hit us hard, and Mom had to step in to support the family by selling fruits up in the uptown market. Dad resorted to booze for solace and comfort. I wondered what happened. I tried asking him many times, and each time, he played it down and shunned me away. Sometimes Dad would act all crazy and just explode with anger, especially when he came home in a drunken state. This happens quite frequently, but it was harmless. Then, there was this incident in one particular night which I'll never forget. As per usual, this was the night that he came home after his drinking session, reeking of alcohol and a mess. He was rambling and ranting unusually, so loud that it woke both Mom and I from sleep. We rushed out of our rooms, worried about what was going on with him. We found him lying on the living room floor. He was acting strange, like he was on some kind of drugs, snarling and talking to himself while attempting to stand. Mom rushed over to help him up, but all of a sudden, he turned on her like she was some kind of enemy out to hurt him. He immediately stood up and ran to the kitchen, grabbing some kitchen utensils and started hitting my mom violently with it. I couldn't stand by and watch, so I yelled at him to stop and get away from her. He got furious, then he lunged at me and pushed me to the floor, slapping my face and kicking my stomach over and over. I curled up like a fetus and screamed for help. The pain was so excruciating, and I began to feel that my body was slowly shutting down. I truly felt completely powerless. Mom then rushed in to protect me, but Dad grabbed her by the hair and slammed her head face down under the dining table. Blood splattered all over the tabletop, and it was horrifying. He then turned back to me, and the beating and kicking continued. I was on the brink of passing out, and right before I did, I saw and felt Mom hugging me tightly, using her own body to shield me from my dad's blows, all while begging him to stop. After that incident, I remembered I was lying on my bed, but the whole house was eerily quiet. I had no idea how I got back into my room, though. I remembered laying on the bed for approximately 10 days, my body heavily injured, only to go to the bathroom in my room whenever I needed. Every night, Mom would quietly sneak into my room feeding me food and gently applying ointment while tending to my wounds. She would never utter a word. It was just tears streaming down her face every time she saw me. All I could see in her eyes was sorrow, and I couldn't utter a word either due to my suspicion that my jaw being fractured and my swollen throat. The pain was just too much. Why wouldn't Dad or Mom bring me to the hospital? I wondered. 2 weeks later, since the beating passed, I started feeling much better and could get out of my room. The house was still eerily quiet. As I walked into the kitchen on tabletop, I saw that Mom had left a meal on the table with a note saying she was off to work at the market. There's no news about Dad at all, and I hadn't heard or seen him since that horrific experience. This repeats for a few days straight. I don't see either Mom or Dad around. I tried contacting them, but to no avail. I went back to college as soon as I felt that I was fit enough. Sure enough, teachers and friends that were concerned about me started asking me what had happened, but I didn't want to share about the experience I went through. Noticing the cuts and bruises I have on my body, they kept pressing for more information. I was scared that they'd report to the authorities and making things worse. So I just made up a story of me having an accident while hiking. After class, I went straight home. The house was empty except for the meal and note that Mom had prepared for me. This happens every single day without fail. I tried calling Mom and Dad every day, and they are still nowhere to be found. I've also enlisted the help of my grandparents and their friends to get a hold on them too. At this point, I still wouldn't want to contact the authorities, as I thought they still needed time to cool off, and I didn't suspect anything bad that was going on. But deep down, I was slowly losing my patience. Days turned into another week, and I still hadn't seen either of my parents. It was getting really strange. I assumed that Mom was just either super busy with work, trying hard to support our family. But why doesn't she pick up her phone? I just want to listen to her voice. Just want to know if she was okay. I also can't get Dad either. What is going on? I thought to myself. Another whole week passed, and I still hadn't seen either Mom or Dad. I was getting super worried. This time, the authorities were notified, friends and family frantically searching for them too. I decided to look for Mom at the market where she sold her goods. But man, I couldn't find her. I asked around and all the other sellers told me the same thing. The weird thing was, they hadn't seen my mom for 3 weeks. I was beyond confused and, honestly, getting pretty worried. Where was she? And what about those notes she used to leave for me every day? My heart was racing with fear. I hurried back home, searching every corner for my mom. Mom? Where are you? I kept calling out, but she was nowhere to be found. I finally sank down on the couch, tired, confused, completely disappointed and bewildered. I turned to the contacts on my phone, hoping to somewhat find a clue while scrolling through them. Out of the blue, I heard a soft thud coming from the storeroom. Thinking it was something that dropped on the floor, I brushed it aside, focusing on who to contact. After a minute or so, a loud thud made me jump. Surely enough, it was coming from the storeroom. I stood up and approached the door slowly, heart pounding hard as if it was dropping out. Thinking it was a thief or something, I cautiously turned the doorknob, turned on the lights and scanned around. There was no one there. I then let out a sigh of relief. As I proceeded to leave the room, I heard the loud knocking again, but this time, it was coming from the big freezer fridge. I freaked out, my heart still pounding like crazy, and I told myself I had to investigate. I was shaking nervously. Something felt terribly wrong. I stood by the fridge, waiting for knocking to happen again. And sure enough, after a while, it knocked again, and I was both scared and super anxious. I had to check it out. My hands were shaking non-stop as I got closer. I finally picked up the courage to open it. Immediately, I screamed my heart out uncontrollably. My eyes couldn't believe it. My mom, curled like ball, frozen inside. I cried and let out a blood-curdling scream till my neighbors came over and rushed in because my front door was left unlocked. They too were shocked and horrified. They called the police and tried to calm me down. I couldn't bear to look at my mom in that condition. Slumped down on all fours, I was stunned and lost, wailing like a baby, and felt the world crumbled around me. The police and ambulance arrived and took her body away. An investigation started. Before long, the police tracked down the killer thanks to some nearby CCTV footage. It's Dad. He confessed that he had been on drugs and accidentally killed Mom that night while she was trying to shield me from his beatings. His violence had broken her neck and spine. He soon realized that she was dead, and in a panic, he hid her in the freezer and ran away, thinking he could escape the truth. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I was agonizing over the loss and never felt so heartbroken. Even after her death, I felt that Mom had never forget to prepare a meal and leaving notes for me. But it turned out, all these while it was Dad that prepared them, feeling the utmost guilt of his life. That's the least he could do, he said. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Look forward, subscribe, and click on the notification bell for more future stories. Also, share your thoughts in the comments below. Got any stories to share? Feel free to send us your stories through the email provided in the description. Peace.